If you have been following Rema's musical journey in the past 2 or 3 years, you may have noticed a very huge shift in his public image and branding. The Afrobeat superstar's personality, music, and imagery has gone from a baby-faced young artist that loved bright colors, cartoons, comics, teddy bears, and cereals to a more mysterious, edgy, and darker one that seems to make many fans quite uncomfortable. His newfound image has caused a lot of reactions from Afrobeat fans and the general public alike, up to the point that in September 2023, the government of Ethiopia refused to allow him to come into their country to perform due to concerns related to religious sentiments, suggestive imagery, and devil worshipping. Consequently, the imagery Rema has been presenting to the world since his 2020 album RAVES and ROSES, up to his latest single Ishali Poppy, has continued to become darker and darker. All this has caused strong reactions and conspiracy theories from many Afrobeat fans, with many going as far as saying that the young artist has sold his soul to the devil, joined Illuminati, or is practicing witchcraft. So in this video, I am going to briefly speak on how Rema went from a young talented artist in Benin City to a global superstar. I will also talk about when he started adopting and using darker imagery in his art, as well as the symbolism behind the imagery he's presenting to the world. I will also talk about some deep reasons that may have caused him to change over time, and finally, how the mainstream audience is taking this new change in branding. Rema, whose real name is Divine Kibo, was born on the 1st of May in Benin City to a Christian family. He started singing in the church at a very young age, like many famous singers before him. At the age of 14, he won a talent competition in Benin called Dream Alive alongside his former music partner, Alpha P. Rema has said that he was the leader of the Rap Nation group in Christ Embassy and sang gospel before switching to more secular music later in his life. He has started recording songs and releasing videos since when he was just 13-year-old. He also had a live band at that same age. His original stage name when he was a teenager was Rema, which is pronounced like Rema but with the letter H. The word is a popular Greek word that means the spoken word of God. All this shows the deep religious background Rema is coming from. In 2019, he got signed to Maven Records and Josin World after a freestyle he did caught the attention of the Prince. The Prince was very impressed by the young artist's skill and talent that he liked the video, reposted it on his page, DM'd the young artist, and finally invited him to come over to see he and his elder brother Don Jazzy. Rema was signed not long after, and the rest is history. Mavins will go on to market him as a young and relatable artist with his catchy pop songs and bright imagery. His first major hit was Dumebi, which was released in 2019, followed by songs like Bad Commando, Lady, Bima, and Soundgasm. But it was Calm Down, which was released as a single in his 2022 album Raves and Roses, that took him to global stardom. The song was later remixed with the international superstar Selena Gomez, and all this took Rema as well as the song to a much larger international audience. The album also produced the hit single Charm. Not long after Raves and Roses was released, many fans started to take notice of the imagery on the album art. Two aspects of the artwork caught the attention of many people, and those were: one, what appeared to be a church on fire, and two, an upside down cross. The artwork, which was originally sketched by Rema himself, was further illustrated by the talented Nigerian visual artist called Larry Williams, aka Willis Art. The album art had two sides. The first side is a popular one that originally sparked reaction from the public, while the second one shows the inside of the house on the first one. Rema and Willis Art used a lot of symbolism to give the artwork many deeper layers. Unfortunately, when asked about the meaning of the artwork, Rema and Willis gave conflicting answers. Rema's explanation was,
okay, so your album cover is like an upside down house that's burning. What's that about? How did that get created?
Okay, so a lot of people had a lot of misconception. They said it's a church.
Okay.
They just see cross, just it's a church. It's not a church. You understand? So when someone asked me this question, I was like, what like embodiment of me consists of a cross and a fire? The whole house actually kind of signifies me.
Yeah.
Because you have this, and to the right of the house you see the fire, and that's literally this.
Right.
The fiery tattoo.
All right.
So the fact that it's upside down is literally like because of like my weird and unusual approach to music. Also, the fact that, everything about my career is literally like defying the laws. It's like we're not taking the normal route, which, yes, I was criticized for it, stuff like that. But yeah, that's literally what it's all about. And if you even check the back cover of the artwork, you see inside the artwork you have things like the time machine. And if you check the time machine, it says future, which links up back to the Headies Award where I said I'm the future. Literally, that house is literally like helping me. It's a visual form of my message on me. So the fact that it's upside down, I already covered that point. So now you understand what I'm trying to.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I know it's okay for people to have their misconceptions, because I've never like done an interview about explaining the artwork. But I did that on purpose though, so that people start actually paying attention to these pieces.
While Willie's explanation was, the skeleton on the cover is Rema. The house burning is the house where Rema wrote those songs. The songs were so hard that they can make a house explode. Rema is running out of the house, but the fire from the house is so intense that it catches up with him. He's running with a rose towards the sun. There's more of it, but I'll end here. If you listen closely to the explanation Rema and Willis gave, you will notice that there's a huge difference in the symbolic meaning each of them gave to the artwork. And these are the two original creators. According to Rema, the house represents him as a person, while Willis said the house represents the living space Rema created the songs on the Raves and Roses album. What that means is that only Rema truly knew what the original meaning of the symbol meant on the artwork, and allowed Willis' art to think whatever he wanted to think, because he was the one who had the original idea and sketched it out. I know by now some of you might be wondering what I think the symbols mean, since I'm throwing doubts at Rema's explanation. First of all, one of the most important things about Rema is that he's very intentional. There's nothing unplanned about him, especially when it comes to his public image and his art. That said, I believe he planted a couple of symbols in the artwork that tell a deeper story about what is going on in his life as well as in his art. Some of the symbols I noticed in the artwork include the upside down cross, the upside down church, the fire, the skeleton on fire, the roses, the swing, the dead teddy bear, the grave, the sword, the single apple, the bats, the sun, mushroom, time bomb, time machine, the state of the house, the picture frame, the teddy bear, and the chariot of fire. Alright, so let's get into the good stuff. So for the church on fire with the upside down cross in the middle, I will go with Rema's explanation because the location of the tattoo on his body matches where they are drawn on the house. That said, I believe he must have also known what an upside down cross means and still decided to release it to the public. You can't tell me that no one in the whole Maven records could recognize the symbolism behind a house with a cross in the middle on fire but upside down. Rema is just gaslighting and lying to the public because not a single person will see a drawing with a cross in the middle and think it is a house. He knew what it looked like and knew how the public would react to it. The upside down cross represents his rejection of Christian values and authority. I believe he was tired of pretending to be a good boy because of his upbringing and his mother. In our present time, the upside down cross has come to symbolize anti-Christian sentiments or Satanism, and there's no way that Rema won't have known about these symbols because he has said it himself that he was inspired by Juice WRLD and a couple of other American artists, and these people that I just called now have been shown to use those symbolism. So Rema is very intelligent. He knew what it meant. I also felt that he was feeling judged by his Christian conscience, some people from his past before his fame, as well as a key family member as it pertains to him becoming more worldly as he has become more famous. I believe he got tired and decided to express an act of rebellion and reject something that has been judging him all those years, As for the upside down cross, meaning that he had become a devil worshipper, I have no proof of that, so I'm not going to speak much about it. But I believe that he knew what the symbols meant and decided to still let it go because, as I said earlier, he has said that he was inspired by people like XXXTentacion, Juice WRLD, and those guys are people that have been on record showing their more occult spiritual side to the public. The fire can symbolize 1. Destruction and transformation. Fire is often associated with destruction but also transformation and renewal. The house on fire can symbolize the end of an old way of life or structure, paving way for a new beginning. So it's the same way you can use fire to cook food or use fire to transform one mineral to another. It can also mean crisis and urgency. A house on fire can represent a crisis or urgent situation that needs immediate attention. It may symbolize personal or emotional issues that are burning or require action. That feeling of urgency, that feeling of sorting it now. So that's what that fire can mean. Another reason could be inner turmoil. In a psychological or emotional context, a burning house can represent inner turmoil, conflict, or stress. It may symbolize a feeling of being overwhelmed or a need to address some internal issues. Fire also represents strong, passionate feelings like drive or lust, and Rema seems to have a lot of both. Interestingly, fire as a symbol was first introduced into Rema's artwork in Calm Down, where the rose that was held by the bear was caught on fire. One thing I noticed about Rema is that he always carries one symbol from his previous project into his new project. And as I'm reading all these symbols, you see that many of the symbols that appear in this list would have come from previous projects, because I feel like he uses his artwork to tell a story. The skeleton on fire represents a transformed Rema consumed by passionate feelings like lust and drive. The skeleton also represents death of Rema's old self. Rema was the one who explained the meaning of the skull in a video he did where he was explaining the meaning of the artwork he did for Bounce.
The reason why we had a scully face there in relation to the song Blessing, you go kill a person, you feel me? That skull face just means death. Yes, a woman can kill a man, it's possible, my brother. Why we also had this skull face to signify that she's evil.
The Bounce artwork was the very first solo project Rema did with Willis Art. This was where the skull symbolism was first introduced into his artwork. As I said earlier, many elements or symbols from Rema's artwork always find a way to make themselves into the next artwork, kind of like he's telling a much larger and deeper story. The roses represent his love for his fans, his woman, and the people. This symbol was first introduced into the cover art for Ginger Me, which was also created by Willis Art. It was also used in various artworks for Calm Down. The rose simply represents his romantic side as well as his love for those he has love for. The swing represents freedom, happiness, and his inner child. The fact that no one is riding or using it shows that the innocent inner child is no longer there, or it has been repressed. The symbol of the swing first appeared on the artwork for Ginger Me and showed him in a happy childlike state. The teddy bear impaled by a spear represents the death of his cute cuddly side, which he has portrayed throughout his career up to that point. The teddy bear as an image and symbol is one that Rema has used since he entered into the music industry. But showing that it has been killed off represents the death of this side of him. And truly, since the album was released, he has stopped using the teddy bear in his art, fashion, and imagery. The grave represents death of his old self, as well as the death of his father and brother. But as it relates to Rema's story, the grave represents death of his old image. It also represents grief and a feeling of sadness. The sword is an interesting symbol that was first introduced in the Soundgasm artwork, but will later appear on the RAVES and Roses album, as well as the Ravage EP. The sword may represent protection and defense. The sword can represent a feeling of protection and defense from harm and negative influence. The sword may also represent conflict and struggle. It can be a symbol for challenges and adversaries he may face, whether it's physical, emotional, or spiritual. Finally, it may also represent power and authority. The sword can also represent the ability to make decisions and take control of situations and his life and all that. The single apple on the tree can represent knowledge, like the apple in the Garden of Eden. I'm not going to talk much about this, but that's what I feel. The bats represent where it comes from, which is Benin City. There are a lot of bats in Benin City and they fly across the sky very often. But in the context of the album art, the bats can represent one, death and the underworld. In many cultures, bats are usually associated with death, darkness, and the underworld. This is due to their nocturnal nature and their presence in caves, which is often seen as the entrance into the underworld. For instance, in the West, bats are often linked with vampires and other creatures of the night. Another symbol for bats is mystery and the unknown. Bats are often associated with mystery and the unknown because of their elusive nature and their ability to fly and maneuver in the dark. This association can make them the symbol of the hidden aspects of life as well as the subconscious mind. The symbol of the bat represents Rema's mysterious nature as well as his personality. The sun as a symbol represents some spiritual force over him, like a kind of god, but a female god based on the way she appears and smiles. She always looks detached but with a smirk. The symbol was first introduced in Soundgasm, which was created by Willis Art again. In an enlarged picture of the sun symbol, you can see that she has fangs, showing that she sucks energy from wherever it is that she gets her energy from, which is usually our worshippers. It can also represent light. And finally, the mushrooms represent the psychedelic or high states Rema's music makes the listener feel. Now, on the second part of the artwork, which is the inside of the building on the first artwork, there is the time bomb, which represents the idea that the album or he himself will soon blow worldwide, which Calm Down would eventually do for the album as well as him, the artist. The timer on the bomb represents a sense of urgency and limited time. The time machine represents hope of going back into time where things were innocent and different. The fact that it is on fire represents the idea that there is no going back to the past of innocence or escape into the future. He is now stuck with his inner turmoil and restlessness. The state of the house represents his inner turmoil or a state of scatteredness. The state of the house may also represent a feeling of emptiness and lack of warmth because of the lack of anything that can make the house feel like a home. Looking at the picture, you see that it's just very bare. The picture frame represents the tattoo he has on the center of his chest, which is the image of a tree. I don't really know what the tree on his chest represents, but usually trees represent strength, individuality and expression, calmness, growth, feeling grounded, and the interconnectedness of everything. The tree image in the burning room looks very dry, symbolizing a loss of vitality or stagnation. The teddy bear represents his childlike or innocent side, about to be consumed and destroyed by the passionate fire. And finally, the chariot of fire, breathing by a skeleton holding a sword in one hand, represents Rema taking charge and heading into battle while consumed by passionate feelings like drive. The image can also represent internal and external conflict Rema must face in his life journey. The next project Rema released after Raves and Roses was Ravage, and this was a 5-track EP released in 2023. The artwork represents Rema's departure from his brighter imagery in favor of a darker aesthetic that the artist uses right now. The artwork was noticeably darker based on color as well as the imagery itself. The art featured a man on a horse with a sword while everywhere is on fire and is riding forward. The whole artwork has a kind of hellish vibe and genuinely makes me feel very uncomfortable. The symbols of the sword, the fire and the horseman appear in the artwork, which may represent serious inner conflict or turmoil. But there's something else in the artwork that really stands out. In the artwork, there is the image of the brain at the top with a blinking light. The symbolism behind this image is Rema's most sinister yet, because the blinking light in the brain represents the pineal gland. If you place where the light is blinking and you carry over the image of the pineal gland, you will see that it matches perfectly. So what is the pineal gland? The pineal gland is the organ of the brain that produces and regulates melatonin, which controls sleep and wake cycle as well as the circadian rhythm. It is usually referred to as the third eye because of its location deep in the center of the brain. In spirituality, the pineal gland is described as the seat of the soul and rational thoughts. Many spiritual traditions believe that it serves as a connection between the physical and the spiritual world. That means that the blinking light represents where Rema's music and art is targeting. He wants this dark music and art to enter the listener's soul. It is 100% impossible for Rema to say he did not do this on purpose, because Rema knows a lot about mythology and spirituality, as he has shown a few times in the past. Even the name Ravage means to cause extensive destruction and ruin utterly. At this point, Rema has taken the role of the destroyer, the one that will use his loss-filled music to destroy the soul of his listener. I know it sounds very judgmental and harsh, but this is what the symbol on the artwork is saying. The next major event that showed the even darker side of Rema was his 2023 concert in London. A lot of people that went there described the vibe of the concert as being dark and scary, with a few of them actually leaving because of how scary things were. I won't talk much about the concert, as the symbols are just a continuation of the other symbols on his album art, like the horse, the sword, and the bat. Ever since the London concert, Rema has been using the bat as a major aspect of his branding especially in recent times. The video of his new song with Charlie Poppin has a lot of bats in the video as well as the imagery. He has said that the bats represents his link to Benin City, but I believe that they represent something deeper. Like I said earlier in the video, the bats represents his darker, mysterious and dualistic nature. Rema seems to have an obsession with fire, which can be seen in his hand tattoo as well as the original cover art for Calm Down, Raves and Roses, Ravage, as well as the artwork for Benin Boys. I believe the fire represents Rema being consumed by inner turmoil as well as passionate feelings like lust, drive and power. Without a doubt, Rema has been using imagery that look dark and demonic in many ways. Just see it for yourself and comment what you think in the comment section. Since the release of the Ravage EP, Rema has adopted red and black as his primary brand colors, as seen in the video of Charm, the London concert, promotional materials, as well as other videos, including the name of a few songs. While researching this video, I noticed that the darkness in Rema had actually started since his very first release, which was in 2019. It would have been a stretch to consider some ideas if you look at it by itself, but knowing that Rema is a very intentional person that uses his art to tell a continuous story of his life and his transformation, it begins to make sense and doesn't seem like a stretch anymore. In the artwork for his first release that had songs like Spider-Man, Boulevard, American Love and Trap Out the Submarine, there's the image of a cat that keeps appearing and disappearing. The cat has a very sinister smell, which is in contrast to Rema's hopeful and innocent look. As tiny as this image is, I believe it foreshadowed what was to come on his next project that had songs like Lady and Commando. You can see that the image on Rema had gone from being innocent to mischievous, just like the cat, almost as if the cat had possessed him. From there, darker imagery was infused into his art, but was still overshadowed by the bright colors. Some of the darker images that started to appear included the skull image and symbol in Bounce and Soundgasm, as well as the cover art for Raves and Roses that symbolized a noticeable shift despite the bright colors of the background. Ravage would be the project that marked the departure from his innocent boyish image, and this was where he adopted the full-on darker image that he is now using right now. So a lot of people have been wondering what may have caused him to change. Some people have said that he's just doing it to just shock the fans. Yes, it's possible that some aspect of what he's doing is just create a reaction or shock the audience, but I believe that there's something deeper. Personally, I feel like he's rebelling. He's rebelling against his Christian background, his feeling of judgment from his Christian conscience and from those from his past. He's tired of trying to be nice and trying to not seem like a totally bad boy. So this new image is an act of rebellion. He's just expressing his rebellious energy. I truly believe he has anger at the church, as well as anger at some religious authority or authority figures in general. So all this is just an expression of that rebellious energy. I also feel like he's influenced by some American artists, people like Trippie Redd, Lil Uzi Vert, and Playboy Carti, because he himself has said it that he was influenced by them. And if you check these guys out, you see that they have this darker imagery and darker branding, which I think Rema is taking after. I also feel like Rema may have been exposed to some occult teachings, especially at that level. Why can't his label stop him? Rema is too big. I feel like when they signed him, they must have noticed that he was very intelligent and had his own way of saying things, so they gave him a lot of creative freedom. They thought that he was just going to just be bright and lovely, but as time went on, he became too successful for them, and at this point now, they can't really tell him what to do. They're just going to allow him to just do whatever he wants to do, even if it means that they might not agree. He is very successful, and the terms of his contract may have given him a lot of freedom. So for them to be telling him no will be difficult, because he's not an employee. He's a cash cow for his record label. At this point, they can't really stop him because he brings money for them. But even if they're not comfortable with his change in branding, they have to just let him just do it and see what will come out of it. The next major question is, how are the mainstream audience taking this change in branding? Nigeria is a very conservative country. This new darker branding is alienating a lot of people, because a lot of people are seeing this branding and they're afraid. It should have been more successful, but all this is limiting part of the audience that are conservative and not so liberal and open to all these darker imagery and all that. Music can be used to tune a person's mind. You can listen to some music and you feel happy. You listen to some music and you feel like fighting. You listen to some music, you feel like dancing. Or two. Please drop a comment below and tell me what you feel about the ideas I shared. Also give the video a thumbs up if you like the video. Subscribe to the channel for more content related to the psychology of pop culture. My name is Kola and I'll see you in my next videos. Bye for now.